Well, good afternoon. My name's Richard Ellum and I'm here at Clark Hall, outside Wakefield, to talk about a little mystery from the 1680s. If you come to Clark Hall, you'll see that on the left-hand side of the main door, as you leave the building, there's a brass clock. It's high up, it's on a bracket. That clock's a very odd-looking clock, for it only has one hand. And the reason it only has one hand is because clocks 330 years ago were at the end of a process of development. The clocks that had been made for the previous 300 or 400 years were lousy timekeepers. They would only keep time to maybe 15 minutes a day, so having more than one hand was a complete and utter waste of time. But in the 1650s, a man called Christian Huygens had worked out how to fit a pendulum to a clock. And the great thing about pendulums is that whether they swing a little bit or a long way, a pendulum always takes the same time to do a swing. Which meant that for the first time you could make a really accurate clock. And a clock with Huygens' pendulum went from keeping time plus or minus 15 minutes a day to maybe plus or minus 10 seconds a week. A big improvement. But Huygens was no clockmaker, he was a scientist, and his way of connecting a pendulum to a clock was not the best. An English clockmaker called Thomas Tompion, working about 1670, say 10 years before the clock at Clark Hall, came up with an improved mechanism. This mechanism, the anchor escapement. What we have here is a pendulum which is swinging at the back of the mechanism, which is making this beam at the front rock. There's a weight that hangs down the side, and that weight causes this wheel to rotate clockwise. But as the wheel rotates, the hooks on the ends of the pendulum get in the way. But as the pendulum swings the hooks from side to side, they let the wheel pass alternately, first at this end and then at this end, and so they control the speed at which the wheel goes round. But also, and this is the really clever bit, as the wheel passes this hook here, it gives the pendulum a little kick. Each time a tooth goes past that hook, it gives the pendulum a tiny little kick, which gives it enough energy to carry on swinging for one more swing so that it gets another kick. Now, with 30 teeth on this wheel and a pendulum swinging once every 2 seconds to complete a complete oscillation from left to right and back to left again, this wheel goes round once a minute. It stops 60 times, moves on every second, so we can have a second hand attached to this wheel, and because our clock is now so good that it's keeping time to seconds a day, a minute hand is a worthwhile addition, because it's now worth knowing that it's 25 past 2 or 25 to 3. And now, here is the real mystery of the Clark Hall clock. If you go and look at it, you will see, hanging down the wall behind it, there is a long pendulum. That clock has an anchor escapement like this inside it. Yet, it's only got one hand, it only has an hour hand, and that's because the clock at Clark Hall represents a transition from the old way of making clocks to the new accurate way of making clocks. They've cottoned on to the idea that you can use an anchor escapement to make the clock accurate, but they haven't twigged yet that you can also use that accuracy to show people not just the hour, but the minutes and the seconds as well. So there we are. That is the strange story of the Clark Hall clock. Thank you.